Okay, in this brief video, I'm going to give you an overview of the QLM e-sourcing application, which provides users with a closed-loop eRFQ process from start to finish in one application with minimal to no manual input at all required. We cover the 5 main steps of the eRFQ process, which is creation of the RFQ, can be created manually, copied from existing RFQ, or loaded automatically from another system. We then go through an assignment process, which selects from your supplier base the appropriate suppliers to include in the event. We issue the RFQ to the suppliers as an email generated by the system with an attachment of a smart PDF form, including all the required information for the supplier, and also captures the information back from the suppliers who make their submissions through the form itself. And that information is captured and loaded directly into the application for analysis and award. So the application starts by bringing each user to a configurable dashboard. Each user can configure the dashboard to bring to the forefront all the RFQs that are of relevance to them. So they can have up to 10 of these saved views. They can be configured through the edit function, and as well the information within the dashboard views can be exported into Excel for further analysis by the buyer or by the buyer's team. The views expose a list of RFQs. In this case, I have 2 RFQs meeting the criteria of this particular view, and then I can expose further into the details of each and every RFQ that meets the criteria. I can then move directly into the RFQ itself by clicking on the highlighted link that takes me into the application. The application allows all of our customers to configure their own templates for the RFQs. Each user site can have as many templates as they like, and those are all built using user-definable fields. So we really start from scratch with each and every implementation of the application and allow the customers to build their own setups. Key to the header information of the RFQ is the due date, which will control the operation of the RFQ relative to customers' response submissions, and more importantly, or most importantly as well, the automated reminders, which let the system know when you would like to remind non-compliant suppliers that the due date is approaching. So very useful from a follow-up perspective. Each RFQ can have multiple lines on it. This RFQ just has 3 lines, which is a relatively small number, obviously, but the system can handle an unlimited number of lines on any given RFQ event. Of course, the system handles attachments both at the line item level and the header level, and the attachments are controlled within the application, stored within the application, and then used to communicate with suppliers as required according to the buyer's requirements. We go through the supplier assignment process in what we call the supplier tab, and this allows us to take a look at the suppliers that may or may not be involved in this eRFQ event. So you can track on the right hand side the number of suppliers that have been assigned to each line item, and the application uses supplier categories to define the requirements, or at least to define the suppliers that are applicable for those requirements. So one of the attributes of this particular line item is that it's going to be picked up at the Columbus CSX terminal, and so I can quickly do a search on all my suppliers to say, okay, what suppliers, in this case carriers, will actually provide service at Columbus CSX. In addition, we have another characteristic called container drayage that says they must also be able to manage container drayage. So I apply a second attribute, and I can see I've got now 5 carriers that meet the requirements of this first line. In fact, all 3 of these lines have the same attributes. But that's sort of a manual process, and I would have to then click the suppliers that I wanted to select. What we've done to make this a lot more user-friendly is simply allow an auto assignment. And so what by identifying within the requirements information what the attributes of the particular line item are, the system will go ahead and and assign the appropriate suppliers. So a very simple process, can be done by anybody as long as the information is within the RFQ itself. We then go through the communications tab, and we do that through what we call an issue. You can see that I've already issued this RFQ out, and we're tracking the time and date that both the RFQ was issued to the suppliers and also when their responses came in. You can see that each supplier also gets a confirmation recognizing their receipt and within the system their receipt of their particular submission. The way the issue works is fairly straightforward. We do an issue. We can do either a standard issue, we can do a new line where we add new lines to the RFQ, or we can ask suppliers for a requote. I'm just going to do a standard issue here, and you'll see the next form is the templated emails that we send out to the suppliers. You can see that each supplier that's involved in the event is getting their own email, which is custom for them. Oops. And you can see that the emails are actually custom built using the information relative to the supplier, so they'll get an email that's relevant for them. So what does it look like from the supplier side? I've already issued this, so I'm just going to jump to email. So here's what the supplier would see, which is the email that came from the application, has the subject line, please respond to the RFQ with the due date and time, etc. From a supplier perspective, it looks as if it came from me, so there's no indication that this came from the application. It has my signature block, etc. It has whatever other text I want to put in here, but most importantly, it has an attachment, which is the RFQ form. And all the supplier has to do is open up that form, and that will open the active PDF form within which they can make their submission. So you can see there's, in this case, I have those 3 lines that went out to this carrier. They've filled in some of the lines. On this one, they've decided that they didn't want a quote, so they clicked a no quote checkbox, which opened up an additional field called no quote reason, which is what we would like to have captured from the supplier. So in order to be able to quote on these 2 lines, they're going to have to put in a reason that makes a reason as to why they're not quoting on this 3rd line. And so the supplier doesn't need to respond to the email that the system sent. They just need to fill out their answers and then click to submit their quote response. The system at that point validates all their responses, makes sure everything looks good from a data and system perspective, and then gives them instant feedback that says their submission was received into the application. Of course, this would be our customer's logo, not the QLM sourcing logo. So all the documents, all the information provided to suppliers will carry our customer's logo, our customer's color scheme, etc. And each template is custom designed for that customer. So what does that look like back in the application? As the receipts come in, you'll recognize that in instant recognition within the application that the response was received from supplier. We also see a confirmation generated by the application. If I go back to the email, so that what does that look like? That is a confirmation email that goes back to the supplier. Once again, it looks as if it came from me, and as an attachment to the confirmation is another PDF form, but this PDF form is frozen, so I can't actually update it anymore. The data in there is now not accessible to me anymore. So it's just total confirmation. The supplier can choose to print that, save that, or whatever, and if they make a change, all they have to do is come back into the original form, change one of these data elements. Maybe I want to make this $300, and then I can click to submit, and the system will track both submissions for me. So jumping back to the application, as I said, we track all the communications in and out, and as the quotes come in, we'll see them in what we call our quote queue. And so those are all available. and we can do an automatic select, which will go ahead and choose the lowest price of all the quotes that have been received. We can also drill down into the detail to see all the information on the RFQ, and here we can just go ahead and do a selection for the line item, which recognizes each of the lines. Go ahead and select one for each. Jump back to the summary screen. Maybe we'll select a different supplier for the third line item. So we can have obviously different selections. And then we do an award notification, which is going to send a note out to the suppliers letting them know that they've been selected for those individual line items. So you can see each supplier recognizes the ones that they were selected for, and then we send the award notifications out to the suppliers. So that essentially closes the process. So we close the RFQ, which creates a transaction for us for reporting and measurement purposes, and closes out finalizes the process. So that's a quick overview. Obviously, we could spend a lot more time talking about this, but that covers the 5 steps we talked about at the very beginning in a very high level way. So I hope that is helpful, and hopefully that gives you a good idea of how the application works. Thanks for your time.